Most people believe that a comeback starts with working harder. It doesn't. It actually starts when we stop. So today we're going to be breaking down the anatomy of a comeback so that you'll be able to rebuild without breaking down, burning out, or blowing up. And so the first thing I want to give you about the anatomy of a comeback, the first step, it has to be a reset. And so what the reset is, that is how you calm your system. Oftentimes when these things happen, we get frustrated, we get upset, we begin to blame other people, and sometimes we even blame ourselves. And to be honest, setbacks are not expected, and they also can be very frustrating. And so it's absolutely important that we have a reset. And what that reset does, it allows us to slow down. It allows us to understand that, listen, these things happen, but these things do not make me, these things are not the things that identify who I am. And so it's always important to realize that the first step of resilience isn't working harder, it's stopping. And so the goal is for us to shift our nerves, for us to shift our anger, for us to shift that frustration so that we can calm down the fight or flight, that being in the moment or trying to figure things out. And so when we do this, we're using pure emotional intelligence. And a lot of times we don't want the process to failure yet. We just want to bring ourselves back to the baseline. And I've had numerous setbacks in my life, things that happened that I wasn't expecting. Some of them because of things that I neglected, and some of them just happen randomly. But when those things happen, oftentimes the emotions hit, the surprise hit, the anger hit, and it typically takes over. So the first thing you have to do, you have to reset. You have to calm yourself down. And you do this by breath work, by breathing. You do this by removing yourself out of that environment, sometimes taking that walk and sometimes getting that sleep, and also definitely not beating yourself up. And a lot of setbacks, when we cause them or when it comes from our neglect, that's the first thing we do. We beat ourselves up. But it's important for us to realize not to beat yourself up. So the action item that I want you to do, I want you to give yourself a mandatory no judgment window. No judgment window. What this means is you don't make any decisions, nor do you criticize yourself. And oftentimes the criticizing voice that we have in our head overweighs the coaching voice that'll help us to begin to move forward. I'm going to say that again. Oftentimes when we have a setback, the critical nature of our thinking keeps us from being able to coach ourselves to the next level. And so when this happens, no judgment, we don't criticize. We don't make any decisions. We don't even try to fix it yet. What we do, we breathe and we accept the current reality, and the emotional wave will pass. And oftentimes we want to begin to accept what has happened. This is what happened. I can't change it now. I could have done something before, but now that we're here, I have to figure out what are my next steps. And before I get to those next steps, I just need to be breathe. I need to breathe and to be present. The second step that I want you to consider in the anatomy of the comeback is that we got to reflect. And so when we reflect, we separate our identity from the event. And so when we have low emotional intelligence, it says that I'm a failure. But when we have high emotional intelligence, it says that I experienced failure. And so what we're doing, we're separating ourselves from the event, from the mistake, from the mishap, and from the frustration. The goal for us to have is emotional processing without the judgment. And oftentimes after the reset, after we let the panic go by, after we let the emotions go by, it helps us to be able to look at things from a clear perspective. Someone told me that emotions extinguish the flames of intelligence. I'm going to say that again. Your emotions can extinguish the flames of your intelligence. So this is why it's critical for us to have that reset period before we begin to reflect. And so oftentimes, if someone skips this, it leads to toxic positivity, where you just slap a smile on a wound. And those of us who ever had a wound understands that you can't fix a wound with a smile. There's a process that has to go through. And this is exactly why I'm sharing with you the anatomy of the comeback. And so when we begin to do this, when we begin to reflect, we admit that it hurt. And then we also say that it's okay for me feeling the way that I'm feeling. We don't try to dismiss it. We don't try to push it to the side, but we allow ourselves to feel the emotions in the moment. The thing that I want you to think about is look at the setback as a scientist. Become curious and look at it as a failed lab experience. I heard someone say that Edison, he failed so many times before he created the light bulb. And oftentimes in our life, we don't want failure, but we have to realize that failure, mistakes are all a part of the development when we are working towards something important. And so when we look at it like this, we take ourselves out of the emotion and we look at the facts, only the facts, nothing else, not the thoughts about our mistake, not belittling ourselves, criticizing ourselves. I should have did this. None of those shoulda, coulda, wouldas. What we're doing, we're disconnected and we're looking at the facts of the situation. And so how do we do this? I want you to look at yourself and I want you to ask yourself these 3 questions whenever you have a setback. Number 1, what part of this was outside of my control? What part of this was outside of my control? So everything that's a part of the setback that caused the setback, I want you to realize that everything is not your fault. Some things are just simply out of your control, and it's important for us to begin to forgive ourselves for that part. And oftentimes that's the hardest part, for us to slow down and for us to realize that, hey, I wasn't the cause of everything. Some things are out of my control. And the things that you can't change, it's like the serenity prayer. You have to have the wisdom to understand the things that you can't change and the wisdom to accept the things and the wisdom to change the things that you can. So what are the things that were outside of my control? The second question, what was in my control? And this right here is radical acceptance, and this is radical ownership. It's not placing the blame on anybody else. It's not placing the blame on him, her, Mother Nature, time, job, kids, wife, all of those things. None of those things. What are the things that are in my control? And so when we begin to look at that, what did I do to contribute to this situation? And the third and final question that is important for us to ask is, what is the hidden data or information that will help me to be smarter when I move forward? What is the hidden information, the data that I need to help me to be smarter when I move forward? A lot of lessons aren't losses. A lot of lessons are how we learn. A lot of the loss aren't losses. A lot of the losses are the lessons we need to begin to move forward. And oftentimes the things that we experience help us to elevate as we begin to advance. And step 3, I want you to rebuild. I need you to start building that velocity, not mass. The mistake most people make when they're trying to bounce back, they try to fix everything in one giant exhausting leap. And that is impossible. Break it down into smaller steps. And when we try to fix it all in one leap, that leads to burnout and second wave failure. And so the goal when we begin to start this rebuilding process, we want to understand that momentum beats motivation. Momentum beats motivation. What does that mean? A lot of times we're motivated, we're highly motivated, but that motivation fizzles out. But when we start building momentum keeps carrying us because the actions and the activities that we do. We don't need massive, flawless 10-step process for your comeback. We just need one micro win to help reset our brain, to help our brain to understand that we're not stuck anymore. One micro win. What is the smallest thing that I can do? Maybe that small thing is reorganizing my desk. Maybe that small thing is me rewriting out my goal. Maybe that small thing is for me to get focused on what's important and not get taken away by the distractions. And so when we begin to think about that, that small action step can be the thing that keeps the momentum going. If you strike a match, the forest fire don't automatically come, but the forest fire was caused by that struck match. What are the things that we can start causing in our life to start beginning to have this comeback from that setback? So the action item, I want you to identify one micro action that you could take within those 24 hours that will not be a huge thing, a small thing. Could be sending that email. It could be writing that paragraph, whatever it is, so that you can begin your comeback. Again, today we discussed the anatomy of a comeback. The first step, you need to reset. That's how you get calm, how you return back to your baseline. Step 2, reflect. You want to take time to think. Someone a lot smarter than me said that reflection turns experience into insight. Reflection turns experience into insight so that you can separate yourself from the setback and know that that's not a part of your identity. And the third and final thing, you rebuild. You want to start building things back, start working towards what you were originally working towards. Because a setback does not mean that you're flawed. It's a part of your experience. But we do not allow setbacks to define us. We allow the comebacks to tell the whole story. Don't allow your setbacks to prevent you from moving forward. And that is a key portion of resilience. Life is going to have its issues and its obstacles, but you have what it takes to come back even stronger, faster, better, and wiser. Tap the like and follow buttons for more content. It's going to help you move forward faster.